Let's talk about community for a minute. Have you ever wondered what actually holds a group of people together, especially, when we're all so flawed? Well, today we're going to jump into a really powerful 500-year-old idea from the theologian John Calvin about what it means to belong to God's family. It was a revolutionary idea back then, and honestly, it might just change the way you think about community today.
So, let's just start with a basic question. Why do we care so much about belonging? We all have this deep, deep need for connection, right? For a place that feels like home. Calvin argued this isn't just some social thing, it's actually spiritual. He believed our own ignorance and weakness are constantly getting in the way of our faith. The bottom line is, we need help.
And this is the help he's talking about. Calvin gives us this beautiful central metaphor. If God is our father, then the church has to be our mother. See, he saw that we need what he called an outward help, some kind of guide to nourish us and keep us on the path. Because, let's be real, we just can't do it all by ourselves.
All right, so let's dig into this first big idea, the church as mother. And I want to be clear, this isn't just a nice little picture. For Calvin, this metaphor is the absolute key to understanding the whole purpose and necessity of the church.
I mean, listen to how intensely Calvin uses this metaphor. He says the church literally conceives us, gives us birth, and then nourishes us for our entire lives. It's like a lifelong school that we never ever graduate from. It's there to guide us from spiritual infancy all the way to maturity.
And the stakes here? They couldn't be higher. For Calvin, leaving the church, this spiritual mother, it's not just some casual choice. He calls it disastrous. It's like a child just deciding to abandon their family. In his view, separating yourself from the church is basically separating yourself from salvation itself.
Okay, so this brings up a really tricky question. If the church is so important, which one is it? Who's really in and who's out? To answer this, Calvin makes this really important distinction between two sides of the church.
So on the one hand, you've got the invisible church. This is the perfect, true body of believers that only God can see. It includes every single chosen person who has ever lived. We can't see it, but we have faith that it exists. But then, on the other hand, there's the visible church. The messy, real-world congregations we actually go to every week. It's a total mix of true believers, hypocrites, sinners, the whole shebang. And here's the key. Even though we can't see that invisible church, we are commanded to join and stay a part of the visible one.
Well, that leads us straight to the next practical problem, right? With so many different groups and congregations all calling themselves the church, how in the world are we supposed to figure out which one is the real deal?
Calvin believed this wasn't some big mystery we had to guess about. He argued that God gave us really clear signs, or what he called marks, to look for. And you know what? Calvin's answer is remarkably simple and practical. It really just boils down to this little two-point checklist. Number one, is the core message of the gospel being faithfully preached and actually listened to? And number two, are the sacraments like baptism and communion being done correctly? That's it. That's the list. And for Calvin, if a church has those two things, it is a true church, period. It doesn't matter if it's a tiny little congregation, or if the music is terrible, or even if it's full of really imperfect people. Its authority is real, and we have a duty to honor that and stick together. Okay, this brings us right to the biggest objection most of us probably have, dealing with all the flaws we see in our own communities. Why on earth should we stay when we see so much hypocrisy?
This is the question. This is what drove so many people in Calvin's day, and it still does today, to just leave the church looking for some purer, better community. But Calvin had a really powerful answer for this.
He uses this parable from the Bible to make his point, and it's a great one. He says the church here on earth is supposed to be a mixed bag. It's like a giant fishing net that catches all kinds of fish, good and bad. And the job of sorting them out? Well, he says that belongs to God at the end of time, not to us, not right now.
So his argument for sticking around is actually incredibly strong. He says, look, perfection is the goal we're all moving toward. It's not the price of admission. He reminds us that even the Apostle Paul looked at the church in Corinth, which was an absolute train wreck, and still called it a true church. To demand perfection from our church now is to totally misunderstand what the visible church is, and frankly, to try and do God's job for him.
So, if the church is just this flawed family of sinners, how does it possibly stay together? Well, that brings us to the final and maybe the most beautiful piece of the whole puzzle. The answer is its greatest power, the ministry of forgiveness.
Calvin called this the power of the keys. And what that really means is the authority the church has to constantly, day in and day out, offer God's pardon to its members. It's the ongoing announcement through the preaching and the sacraments that says, hey, you're forgiven.
And this is so important to get. Forgiveness isn't a one-time ticket you punch just to get in the door. It's the very air the members breathe. It's the daily grace that holds this whole flawed family together and allows everyone to keep going no matter how many times they mess up.
This quote right here, this just sums it all up perfectly. The church isn't a museum for displaying perfect people. It's a hospital where sick people come to get well. It's a place for the broken, for the struggling, for the imperfect, all of us leaning on the exact same grace.
And that leaves us with this final thought to chew on. Calvin's whole idea forces us to ask, what does it really mean to commit to any imperfect community, whether that's your family, a team, or even your country? Maybe, just maybe, it means learning to see it not just for what it is today, but for what it's becoming, held together by the messy, beautiful, and constant work of forgiveness.